When people think about ancient Egypt, they imagine golden pyramids, powerful pharaohs, mysterious temples, and beautiful treasures. But behind that magnificent civilization was a much darker reality. Ancient Egypt was a society built on extreme power. Pharaohs were not simply kings. They were believed to be divine rulers whose commands could determine the fate of thousands of people. Ordinary Egyptians lived very different lives. Farmers worked under the burning sun. Laborers carried enormous stones, and the poorest families struggled to survive. Death was everywhere in Egyptian culture, but it wasn't always peaceful. Tombs, executions, wars, disease, and brutal punishments were all part of life. And perhaps the darkest part is that many of the people who built Egypt's greatest monuments would never live long enough to see them completed. For centuries, people imagined that the pyramids were built entirely by slaves, but history is more complicated. Evidence suggests that many pyramid workers were organized laborers who received food, shelter, and other forms of support. However, that does not mean their lives were easy. Building massive monuments required exhausting physical labor. Workers had to transport enormous stones, work in extreme heat. Their bodies reveal the cost. Archaeologists have discovered skeletons showing signs of broken bones, heavy labor, and serious injuries. Some workers probably died during construction. Others may have suffered permanent injuries. The pyramids may have been symbols of eternal power, but behind those magnificent stones were thousands of ordinary human beings who paid the physical price. Ancient Egypt. The pharaoh was considered more than a political leader. He was believed to stand between humans and the gods. That belief gave the pharaoh extraordinary power. His image appeared on monuments across the kingdom. His name was carved into stone. His victories were celebrated, while his failures could disappear from official records. Pharaohs controlled land, armies, religion, and enormous amounts of wealth, and challenging the ruler could be extremely dangerous. Royal power was protected by soldiers, priests, administrators, and a complex system of laws. Some pharaohs were remembered as great leaders. Others became symbols of violence and oppression. But perhaps the most disturbing part was the psychological power of the throne. If people believed their ruler was chosen by the gods, resisting him wasn't simply political rebellion. It could be seen as rebellion against the divine order itself. Ancient Egyptian society had laws, courts, and judges, but punishment could be extremely harsh. Crimes such as theft, corruption, robbery, and attacks against important institutions could result in severe consequences. Physical punishment was sometimes used, and serious crimes could lead to death. The goal wasn't only to punish criminals, it was also to protect something Egyptians called mat, the idea of order, balance, and justice. When someone committed a serious crime, they were believed to threaten the balance of society itself. This explains why authorities could respond so aggressively. For ordinary people, justice was not always equal. A wealthy or powerful individual could have advantages that the poor did not. So beneath Egypt's image of perfect order was a society where fear of punishment helped maintain control. The Egyptians believed death was not the end. They believed a person's spirit could continue into another world. But preparing a body for that journey was a disturbing process. The organs were removed and preserved separately, while the body was carefully dried using a mineral substance called natron. The body was then wrapped in layers of linen. For wealthy Egyptians, the process could be elaborate and expensive. For ordinary people, burial practices were usually much simpler. The most disturbing part was that ancient Egyptians were deeply focused on protecting the body after death. Tombs were filled with food, objects, jewelry, and sometimes statues intended to serve the dead in the afterlife. Death had become an entire industry, and the richer the person was, the more elaborate the preparation for eternity could become. The royal family of ancient Egypt was not like an ordinary family. Pharaohs sometimes married close relatives, including siblings. to preserve royal bloodlines and strengthen political power, but keeping power inside one family could create serious problems. Royal succession often became a dangerous game. Brothers, sisters, wives, children, and rival officials could all become involved in struggles for the throne. Some rulers died unexpectedly. Others disappeared from history, and in certain periods, powerful officials may have played major roles in deciding who would become the next pharaoh. The royal palace could look luxurious from the outside. Inside, however, ambition, political alliances, and fear could determine who survived and who gained power. The throne of Egypt was one of the most powerful positions in the ancient world, but it could also be one of the most dangerous. Ancient Egypt was not always peaceful. Its armies fought neighboring kingdoms, defended borders, and expanded Egyptian influence. Wars produced prisoners. Some captives were transported into Egypt and forced into different forms of labor. Egyptian society included people with very different legal and social statuses, and the reality of forced labor was complex. Captured enemies could become servants or workers. Others were incorporated into Egyptian society over time. But war was never simply about winning territory. It meant destroyed communities, families separated from each other, and people losing control over their own lives. The magnificent temples of Egypt often celebrated military victories. Yet behind those victory scenes were thousands of people who experienced war from the opposite side. For them, Egypt's expansion was not glory, it was survival. Egyptian tombs were designed to protect the dead for eternity. But there was one major problem. Everyone knew where the wealthy dead were buried, and inside those tombs were valuable treasures: gold, jewelry, statues, food, furniture, and other objects were placed beside the dead. For desperate people, these tombs became irresistible targets. Tomb robbery became a serious problem, especially during periods of economic instability. Some thieves entered burial chambers and destroyed mummies while searching for valuables. Authorities tried to stop them, but the problem continued for generations. Eventually, some royal burials were moved to hidden locations to protect them. The famous Valley of the Kings became one of those places. But even hidden tombs were not completely safe. The ancient Egyptians prepared their dead for eternity. Ironically, many of their greatest enemies were not foreign armies. They were people searching for treasure. Ancient Egyptians spent enormous amounts of time preparing for death, but the afterlife wasn't guaranteed. They believed the dead could face judgment. According to Egyptian belief, the heart of a person could be weighed against the feather of mat. If the person's heart was judged worthy, they could continue into the afterlife. But if the heart was considered corrupted by wrongdoing, the consequences were terrifying. The soul could face destruction instead of eternal peace. This belief influenced how people lived. People wanted to be remembered as honest, loyal, and worthy, but it also created a powerful fear of what would happen after death. For ancient Egyptians, death wasn't simply the end of life. It was the beginning of a judgment, and the final verdict could determine whether a person would exist forever or disappear completely. Ancient Egypt survived for thousands of years. Dynasties rose and disappeared. Pharaohs built monuments that were supposed to last forever. But no empire can escape time. Wars, political struggles, economic problems, foreign invasions, and changing rulers slowly transformed Egyptian civilization. Persians conquered Egypt. Alexander the Great. Later, the Roman Empire took control. Eventually, the age of the pharaohs came to an end. But the strange thing is this: the people who built Egypt's greatest monuments wanted to achieve immortality, and in one sense, they succeeded. Their civilization disappeared, but their pyramids remained. Their tombs remained, their stories remained, and thousands of years later, we are still looking into the darkness of ancient Egypt, trying to understand the people who lived, suffered, ruled, fought, and died along the Nile. Perhaps that is the darkest truth of all. Even the most powerful people in history